Welcome to a new episode of the Advancing Consciousness series with Franco Di Nicola. This is a place where people can come to gain further insight and clarity as to what is going on and how we can shift things on a personal and global level, while also accessing higher levels of consciousness and awareness. We bring this series to you free of charge so that many are able to access this information. However, if you resonate with what Franco shares and you would like to support his work, contributions are welcomed and greatly appreciated. A link is in the description and will be provided in the chat if you feel guided to do so. Also, we have many previous workshops, such as a couple of our most recent, Maneuvering with Neutrality and Alignment during this next wave of unfoldments, and Deprogram Clearing Empowerment Workshop. You could also join us in our membership program, Let's Talk About You, where like-minded people come together bi-weekly to talk about the topics requiring deeper understanding and clarity. All of these are available on Teachable, and we encourage you to check them out as they are great resources at very affordable prices to assist in better understanding this human experience. The Teachable link will also be provided in the chat and description. And lastly, don't forget to share. As the more of us coming together and creating a shift in oneself, the more effective it'll be to shift things globally. Thank you for joining us and being part of the change. Enjoy today's broadcast.
So welcome everybody to another episode of Advancing Consciousness series. This is episode 53, and we're going to be playing with what lowers your frequency. A lot of people talk about frequencies and how frequencies actually control you wherever you're at. Because you've noticed whenever you're in a higher frequency, you have different access, you have a different way of experiencing life. You feel much better on so many levels, but not only that, you feel much more supported. So this is why we wanted to play with this one today. Once again, I'm flying solo, and when I mean solo, that I'm running all the controls and everything else. However, as you can see, I have these fancy little wireless headset on because Kimberly is on the other side of the country, so she's going to be monitoring your questions if there is any. And then she will let me know what the questions are so I can actually address it rather than for me to keep going back and trying to look at the screens and so forth, because there's quite a juggling to be done. So welcome again. I'd like to thank you for co-creating this and the support that you guys are providing and so forth. Please share this as much as possible. I'll just throw my little banner here. Share as much as possible to reach more people. As more people activate their own knowing and so forth, we create a much more powerful ripple effect and speed through the changes that are necessary that we've called forth and want to play with to advance our human experience at this point in time, and also upgrade our world and every single system that exists within it. If you haven't subscribed, we are on several different platforms. We're on Facebook on 3 different pages, my own personal page, my public page, but of course on the group page called Advancing Consciousness Series. But we also have a YouTube channel called Advancing Consciousness Series, and we also have a Vimeo channel called Advancing Consciousness Series. And we stream it from there on many platforms to reach as many people as possible. So if you're on YouTube, please subscribe and notification bell if you haven't done so. Comment, like, do whatever you like to do. The more interaction there is more spread that we receive to reach more people. So important to share. If you've missed out on any other opportunity of finding out that we have also a podcast that goes out daily. We have had a couple of little disruptions here and there, so we may have missed a couple of days here and there, but we're trying to keep it as consistent as possible. That's available also on 3 of the pages on Facebook, including the Facebook group called Advancing Consciousness Podcast. And we have a YouTube channel called Advancing Conscious Podcast, and also one on Vimeo. So subscribe, join, do whatever you have to do so that you get notifications, get to know what's going on, and we get to play. So I'm going to put down this banner here since I'm the one doing this. So let's take a look and let's play with today's subject. And it's a hot one because many people have been talking about, lowering what lowers our frequency. For some of you, it may be odd. You mean my frequency changes? Well, yes, absolutely, it does. And what does that frequency do? That frequency does a huge, influence of how you play the game of life, how much access you have within yourself, how much you actually can create a powerful ripple effect. Now, of course, the collective is very much so a very low vibration. And we're going to talk about a lot of that stuff as we're going along through this episode. So we're going to address it. So anyways, what lowers your frequency? We're going to look at that, and controls you. One of the things we need to understand, it controls you. Your frequency controls you. Because look, if you're in fear, everything that you create, your reality all shapes around the fear, because it's a very different frequency. Feeling good about life, or feeling good about what you are creating, feeling empowered, is very much affected by your frequency. And we're going to look at what affects that. So let's go through this. All right, so the first one, what lowers your frequency? First thing that comes up, life. You say, life? What does that mean? Life. I've heard this many times. I say, why are you in the state you are? Why are you in such low frequency? Life. Life sucks. Life is this. Life is that. Life has been unfair to me. Life in one way or another has not provided me. I am not being supported. I am not, experiencing life to my own design. Well, yes, it depends on how you look at life. It can very much lower your frequency. Now, you have to understand, we all came here with the intent to play a role. And those roles have changed, shifted, expanded, and so forth along the way from birth till now. And it will continue to adjust. Now, some of you came in with high intention to maintain a certain frequency, a certain accessibility of life, so that you can plug it into your life experience. And part of that life experience meaning playing, expanding, growing, doing all types of things that you really came here to do. But at the same time, what you actually also did is that when you came in with that certain particular frequency, you wanted to create a powerful ripple effect to make a change and really upgrade, transform the human experience, and also what we call the playground Earth, which is just a playground, as I said. Now, we all came in with certain frequencies. You have frequencies of the physicality that represents Gaia's frequency in many ways. Of course, you can adjust accordingly, so whatever Gaia provides in its highest frequency is the baseline that it can reach without inputting the other components to it, which I will talk about. So, but again, say planet Earth is at a certain bandwidth of frequency. Say it's right here. This is Earth, Gaia, whatever you want to call it. Gaia, you have that. So this is the level. So we'll put that level so you understand what that is. However, depending on our experience, what we put our focus, energy, and so forth, how we internalize our experience, we can go lower. So we can actually be down here, or any range really, and in some cases even go down even further. So these are lower levels. Now, you think, okay, how can physically I go to a lower level than what Gaia has to offer? Well, we can, and that is our experience. And we have the freedom to access. Just because the resources are there does not mean that it's guaranteed for us to utilize it. Now, during those stages, there's several things that happen. You may come in as a physicality, this frequency, depending on your parents, specifically your mother, if your mother is in this state, which may have fear, may have all types of things playing out, then of course she's going to maintain a particular frequency. Whatever she interacts with, whatever emotional charges she has, may do temporary drop in frequency even lower. It's still way lower than Gaia's, depending on what's going on with her. Now, you, as the physicality that's coming through her, you kind of get to experience all of this. You're going to go through the different stages of it. You're going to experience it. However, you're not locked into any of this. It's not that, oh, my mother's frequency is that low. Yes, you will experience it. Yes, you're going to have a certain impact from it, and you're going to try it out to get a feel for it, but you still have the option to fluctuate. Now, that's just the body part. So we're talking body. Of course, now you have also the human entity. That is kind of a version of a soul that has been designated with its own specific signature to reincarnate only on planet Earth. So, this human entity, depending on its choices, experiences, and so forth, will hold either what we call Gaia's level or anything below that. It has the freedom to bring that into play. The human entity, because it's had many, many, many lives, has a lot of records about having different experiences, higher, lower, higher, lower. Now, can it go above Gaia's? Yes, it can. It can carry it, may not be able to utilize it as much, but it can actually go above that. So above Earth frequency. Now, how does it get that? Well, first of all, because it's receiving energies and codes and stimulation from the sun, which the sun is highly powered by what the galaxy has to offer, plus it is also affected by many, many, many of the other planets within our solar system. That's the first part. The second part comes our other soul, our interdimensional soul. Okay? Now, the interdimensional souls had lives on different planets, have had different experiences. Some of the dimensions were higher. They've played in higher frequencies. Some of them have actually been tuned to come in with that higher frequency. We'll adjust accordingly to match the planetary part. But each and every time the human entity has embodied a soul, because this reincarnates, and the souls reincarnate, each time the soul comes in, it's actually, or comes in and the human entity is involved with the body, it actually is able to tap into the frequency that the soul has to offer. Now, of course, it has to stay in alignment with what the purpose is of what it's coming into play. So your life frequency can go lower, can go higher, can go at the planetary level, or it can go above that at different times. So basically, your makeup is the body itself, you've got the human entity, and you've got your multidimensional soul. So that is your makeup. Now, you're coming through your parents, mom specifically. Mom's going to have interactions. She's going to have experience. She's going to have all types of fun things that's going to be happening in her life. Guess what? Her vibration is going to fluctuate depending on what's going on. Some people say, well, it changes the chemistry. Yes, the chemistry, but the chemistry is really vibrational frequencies that replicates or shows up as chemistry within the body, because there's just information it's in there stored, because we're all from that field. Now, so depending on this makeup, it has the freedom to kind of cater its frequency accordingly. So when you're born, you have already the ranges that your parents had to offer. Even if dad was not directly involved at all points, and just the fact that he's provided the seed, or whatever you want to call it, to create that physicality, there's already codes in there, DNA codes, there's already a certain frequency range depending on what your father has experienced. Now, to give you an example, you can have a mother that is very low frequency. You can have a father that is higher frequency, higher consciousness. And you would think, okay, what happens? Well, I'm more dispositioned to go into my mother's because I'm in her womb for 9 months. And I'm constantly streaming that. Well, there's two things to that. That doesn't quite work that way. Yes, it may have a little bit more impact, but the frequency of your dad, for example, regardless if it's coming from a higher frequency, it's already encoded in the seed, or what we call the sperm, whatever you want to call it, semen, whatever you want to call it. But that still has a connection. So the frequency of dad is going to still be streaming into mom, even though that you're in the womb of your mother. So you're not bound to only the frequency of one parent. You are actually getting two sources. So that is what makes up. So now you come out as a body. Here you are, the new you, coming out to play, and you're going to have a blast because you're coming into a playground that you've been wanting to come through. So this is you coming in as a new baby, and I'm not even going to try to stick to the stick man. You're going to come in as a new baby, and you want to play, you want to experience life, and you want to really have. So now at this point in time, you've kind of selected what ranges of frequencies you're going to plug in your experience. Now, when you come in, you will have a tendency, it's not 100%, have a tendency to start off with minimum this and above, especially if you've had all of this that is already above Gaia's frequency. You may start off with that. And this is one of the reasons that the world looks very different to you as a child. You're not indoctrinated, you're not programmed, you're not emotionally charged or anything of that nature. You may have some, yes, absolutely. Even the ego is not so impactful at that point because it's just a really small, undeveloped, going through, the AI's learning because it starts fresh. Now it has a base operating system and so forth. So here you are, you start off with a slightly higher frequency, maybe quite a bit higher, and you're going to experience life. You're going to want to be in your more of your natural state, which is the playfulness, explorative, imaginative, creative, feeling that nothing is going to take you down. There's no concern about life. You're going to have whatever experiences you're going to have based on what you want to shine. So what you're doing is creating an environment that you're already expanded to. Now, that's going to create a ripple effect, not only to your community, your lineage, but your parents too, one way or another. Even if they're not together, it's going to impact. So I'm throwing those in because there's a lot of single parent thing going on. So we wanted to kind of cover that is the connection is still there, even though they may not be sharing a space. Now, because of the distance, the receiving of one particular frequency over the other may be a little bit dimmed, unless it's a complete choice by you, this is you, by you to, okay. Sometimes my Y's don't look quite, this is you. I don't think it's any better. But anyways, this is you. And you may make an arrangement and say, okay, I want to take less streaming from mom, and I'm going to take some more from dad, and vice versa. You may also, because of the genetic pool, you may have connections to another individual in your life stream, physical life stream, being a grandparent, could be uncle, cousin, aunt, you name it, right? There's different accessibility that you have. So here you are, you've come here, you're playing. So you're now utilizing whatever is available for you. And you are now expressing that. As you're expressing that, you're also creating an environment to enhance all of them, all involved in your community, streaming, and so forth. The only difference is that it's an option that, let's put it this way, it's an option if they accept it or don't accept it, or if they use a small part of it or not. Because everybody's got free will, everybody's got their sovereignty and so forth. Even though it's made available, it's up to them. So there's you. Now, as you're playing the game of life, we're going back to life, we're playing the game of life, you have all these beautiful people around you that are kind of sharing their experience. They're not only sharing their experience, they're sharing their energy, their frequency, their focus, whatever they may be feeling emotionally, and so forth. They have their preconceived idea of life. There's going to be people that are going to be afraid of life. They have to protect you, and they have to do this, and they have to condition and program you to be safe and to protect yourself. What's happening? So what they're doing is they're providing you, because at this point, really safety is not in that vibration, especially now anyways. It's pushing you down to a lower frequency of where they may be. However, it's up to you how much you're going to choose, because some of you have chosen not to engage with that. Even if you did, some of you only taken a small bits of it, give it a taste, and kind of ramp it back up because you're not interested in it. Because now you wanted to have the experience outside of your womb going into lower frequency. So all of that is being offered to you. You have the freedom to choose. So here you are, you get all these relatives, you have your neighborhood, whatever. You got mom and dad or one or whatever. And they're kind of preparing you for this dangerous world, for this world of survival, for this world where you have to earn your way, for this world that you have to be programmed, conditioned to understand how the game of life is. What life is that? That's an interpreted life. It's the inverted matrix life, the inverted 3D, 2D life that they're kind of sharing for you. Now, this pretty well is across the board, except there are some, I've had already parents that have gone through certain levels of advancement and so forth, so they may have not put a lot of focus and attention to that. And if you chose that, pretty cool for you. If you haven't, pretty cool for you for having the other experience. So they're sharing with you what their experience have been. But their experience is only related to their conditioning and programming that they have absorbed from their parents, which would be your grandparents, or the communities they've been involved, but then all the different stages they went through, not only being exposed to other people, friends, and so forth, education, if they did go through education, through other people, media, you name it, whatever they've been exposed to, plus playing the game of the systems and whatever else. So they're sharing on that because they feel that that's the only option there is, because that's what they've adopted. And that's pretty cool. But at the same time, they're plugging that into you. Because again, what's happening is that you've already chosen to be in a lower frequency or to have a certain higher frequency, whatever it is, but they're still imposing you. So what happens? We start to adopt concepts, beliefs, perceptions, related, related ideas and whatever else, but also start to see the world through their eyes, in a sense, by their experiences. But then it doesn't stop there. So now you're now exposed to what the media has to offer. Depending on when you came in, some of that media may not be really available. It may have been just what's handed on by your community and whatever else. But the ones that are especially more current now, the media is bombarding you one way or another. So you're actually observing more support, more codes, more understanding that the game of life is a certain way. Again, the certain way is mostly all reflected from the inverted matrix that was live and on stream for 10,000 years, which is not now, but we still have a lot of the residue of that through our systems, through the media, whatever, and even within our parents and so forth. So now you go to the educational system. The educational system is now programming you and altering you. And guess what happens? Your frequency lowers even further because there's more fear, more survival, more safety issues, more this is how life is. So all of a sudden this expanded opportunity that you wanted to play, you're starting now to adopt this thing. So now all of a sudden your possibilities start to reduce, your own knowing starts to reduce, your playfulness starts to reduce, your excitement and imagination starts to reduce, because you can't use imagination, you got to memorize this way of life. So each part of it is lowering your frequency lower and lower, and your accessibility. And this is why what happens is kids are quite intuitive right from the beginning, may be able to see things that they normally would not see as adults unless they get reactivated again, in which a lot of people are doing so, and there's many involved in all of this. But just to see all of that that's going on, guess what happens? You're now reducing this accessibility for a period of time, in which you have the option to do so for whatever period that you choose. So then, of course, you're exposed to more media, more friends, more connections, and so forth, and you start to adopt even deeper and deeper and deeper. But it doesn't stop there, because now this software called the ego, I'll just put that here, the ego, which is our artificial intelligence, is learning and growing and becoming much more capable of navigating and driving you. And the ego really doesn't work very well when it comes to, let's call it, high frequency, higher state of consciousness, or anything of that nature, because the ego has been wired, programmed, and its initial job and its current job is to keep perpetuating what we call the inverted matrix. And the reason it's inverted because everything is backwards. So it wants to keep you in that, and also at the same time what we call the inverted 3D and 2D. I got to get better to this. Okay, 2D. And that's what this job is for. So it continued to evolve, it continued to expand, it continued to learn, it continued to observe. And guess what? Now it's going to play a different role, much more powerfully for you. So because this is for a lower frequency, that's also aiding in lowering the frequency. Because this likes fear, it likes survival, it likes struggle, it looks at the past and projects it to the future and back and forth. And the one thing it likes to do, keep you out of the moment, keep you out of the presence, just keep you busy one way or another. So you can see you're playing the game of life, and yes, it can lower your frequency. Are you doomed because of it? No. You always, in every stage of your life, from the moment you were conceived to birth to now, you've had always the freedom, even though you may not have been conscious of it, to use any and all of this to shape and also govern your frequency. So as you can see, that all of this is optional, and also the ratio of what you're going to use is up to you from mostly a superconscious level. Now, I talk about superconscious. What is a superconscious? Superconscious mainly is your soul, but it's also part of your human entity. And when you're saying with the human entity, it's already a higher level of consciousness, the highest it has accessibility to. And then, of course, you have the innate consciousness of the body that's continued to expand, because the body is becoming more and more online. Remember, the body has DNA. The DNAs, each one, we on average have 12. Each DNA is a transmitter receiver. Each DNA is a gift, a sharing from a specific species that was a contributor with its codes and whatever else to create this human physicality. This is a multi-species representation, or this body is made up of 12 species, as low as 9, which is a smaller number of people in that range, and as high as 14, which is even smaller range of that. However, so we're looking at pretty well 99%, if not more, is in 12 DNA strands. Each DNA strands are transmitter receivers. What happens with the transmitter receivers? As they're becoming more online, they're receiving not only the consciousness, but the frequencies of those particular species in their own advancements. And that is streaming in your body. So that is upgrading your body. And accessibility of consciousness is upgrading the body. But also at the same time, Gaia is advancing. So that is also upgrading your body. Now, all of this is available, and it's for you to construct. So you have a lot of support. You have a lot of input here. It's not like, you know, being human is this reduced version of your beingness. No, it's specifically designed for something amazing. We may not have experienced its amazingness in the way we thought we would go, but it was quite amazing just even to go in the backward world and to experience everything sensorially and otherwise, even playing in the highly polarized world for a period of time. So all of that is reversing now. So you can look at life, well, it's pretty flexible in the way of how we're going to play this game. So when we look at it, can life lower your frequency? Yes, it can. But it's a choice. It's a choice. And there's no mistake if you chose to do so, because most of us have done exactly that. Now, why would you lower your frequency in the first place? Why? Well, let's understand the depth of it. Many of you have come here to not only experience the human experience, but make a contributing factor, contributing part of upgrading this human experience and the planet, or the playground itself. I'm not talking about planet, the Gaia itself, but how we play the game, changing the rules, the functionality, all of that stuff. Okay? So we have made that choice to do so. Now, for you as a soul, coming from another dimension, and sometimes you may have come from the previous dimension, but you've had multiple dimensionality within yourself. You're coming in and you may have tuned yourself. So you may have gone to a tuning to bring in a very specific frequency, a very specific level of consciousness, a very specific level of accessibility of your beingness of source. Now, of course, souls have signatures, so does human entities, and in a way the body does too. What are the series, or what we call the signature? They're just basically codes on what it can activate, utilize, and whatever else. Now, so you may be planet. You could say, well, you know, I've been here several times, maybe many times. I can just come in straight in and pick a human entity or work with a human entity and upgrade the body and upgrade the whole experience. Well, depending on where you came in, when you came in, you may have gone into and saying, well, you know, the soul is at a certain level. Now you're selecting a human entity. Even if the human entity was here prior to you, it's going to be different. So you can't really access fully that. I mean, it does go through a purging where certain parts are removed and other parts are plugged in. But you have to understand that last experience, whenever that would have been, it could have been 1 year ago, or it could have been, from the entry point, or it could have been 100, 200, 3 years ago, or 300 years ago. That it could be higher than that or lower than that, really. So the human entity has the experiences of multiple lives, but they were at different stages, different frequencies, and different bodies and so forth, or whatever it chose to play. So in fact, when it goes into the human entity component, when you're looking at this part, you're saying, okay, I'm coming in, but at the same time, this may not be up to date. So this is why when it comes in, it tries to update itself with the current energies, the current connection with the body, and of course the new soul that comes into play. It's very rare you get the same soul with the same human entity, because it doesn't normally do that. So it needs to get associated with that, and then it has to get familiar with the body, because the body's upgrading all the time too. Gaia's changing, the body's changing, your parents' bodies are changing, their operating is changing, their souls are changing, whatever it is. So all of those things have come into play. So you may choose to come in tuned for a certain frequency. However, now you have to go into the depth of experiencing the human experience. So what does that mean? You're going to lower your frequency accordingly that would match part of your body, part of your human entity, what the soul brings in, and what we call the collective frequency is. Whoops. Collective frequency is. But also the collective programming and operating system. Why? Well, because you want to learn. You want to gain an understanding, the depth of the game, how far you can go, how heavily it can be programmed, and so forth. So you get an integrational, experientially advanced opportunity to really understand the human experience. So that's what you're doing. You're trying to understand the human experience, but the experience is done through the current body you have, with the current human entity and the current soul. So those things are new combinations each and every time. So this new 3 combinations are going to go and integrate accordingly. And what happens with all of that is that now it's setting up a whole new platform of how it wants to play. By doing so, then it wants to integrate and bring the inputs of all the various variations. Yes? Well, what you can do with your frequency, you can activate. Yes, if your frequency is higher, you will activate more of the DNA. It doesn't switch on off sort of thing. You actually, it is variable in the range. Of course, you're never going to turn it off completely as it was before once you've triggered it. But where your focus and frequency is, you will access different range or capacities of each of the DNAs. Now, see right now what's happening is that with everything that's playing out on the planet at the moment, it is there to stimulate, activate, encode, turn on as much as possible. Again, even when you turn it on, the volume is really low, or at least the accessibility is low, because it will be a shock to have it come on like this. As much as people say, I just turned on all my DNA. Yes, that's true, you turned it on. But what's the volume at? It's going to be low, and it's going to continue to increase along the way, because each DNA, as the streaming comes in, will create pretty powerful changes within the body itself, but also how the human entity could play with it, and the accessibility of the soul. So yes, the frequency does affect how much of the DNA is turned on to a certain degree. So this is why a lot of the higher frequencies that are coming onto the planet, and the spectrums of light and everything else that's coming in, is changing your frequency, which also then stimulates the turning back on of the DNA. Even though, for the majority, 10 of the DNA strands were turned off completely, and 2 of them that were left on were filtered tremendously and streamed tremendously, so that it would not be so powerfully impactful to kind of shake us out of that. But what's happening is all of this is shifting for us right now. So hopefully that's clear enough. Okay, so all right, cool. Where was I? All right, so you may want to integrate and understand the human experience, so you're going to take that mixture coming into play. So this is how, what your life lowering your frequency, yes, but it also advances your frequency along the way, because you can plug in more of all of these coming into place. So this is why I say you can actually use certain components of this to basically go even above Gaia's frequency. And there are people that are doing that, and then they're actually assigned sometimes to go turn on grids or to do certain things for them, or to actually be a conduit to activate certain parts on the planet and so forth, so that Gaia, because again, Gaia is responsive to us. And the thing is, unless we give it the key to turn on, it's like this. I mean, you can have a powerful access computer or whatever, unless you launch certain programs or even actually go into the depth of the program, it's not going to come on. So it's the same thing with Gaia. Gaia is there ready to offer. Now, of course, there's two platforms now, where it used to be just the one platform, and that platform was completely wide open. Now we have two platforms, organic 3D and organic 5D, with the capacities to go into inverted 3D, inverted 2D and 2D and inverted matrix. Is just really remaining in this part. It's not, it's something that we're utilizing. But with all of that, so you may have chosen to understand, get the depth of what the operating system is, and then be able to explore how to change that. So does life, lower your frequency? Only as necessary and only temporary. Now, some people, of course, will go through the life stream and have left and stayed in that lower frequency. Now, how does it control you? How does it control us? Well, depending on the frequency that we're in or playing with, it actually activates and restores or even stimulates certain patterns, certain thought forms, certain parts of the programming that we may have received that will adjust and alter maybe how you feel, how you see things, what choices you make, what direction you go with anything, who you play with and don't play with. It also, when we're looking at how else does it control you, it actually reduces your accessibility of potentiality, your accessibility to your higher consciousness. It actually reduces your accessibility of your beingness and sourceness, your accessibility to the communication of your soul, the communication of the human entity, and the communication of the body. Because all of these three are communicating with you. I'm not saying it's going to turn it off, but I'm saying it will stimulate that. Now, what else does it control you? Well, in the depths of it, you now make a preference. So here is your body talking to you, and then there's your soul talking to you. So let's take some of this off so I can have some space. So you have your human entity and your soul talking to you. So this is you. So you're getting this information. So you're receiving streaming from all of this on its highest aspect. So you got the body, the human entity, and the soul. Depending on your frequency, it will reduce the capacity of getting that feedback. Sometimes people say, well, I can't hear myself. I can't hear my inner self. I can't hear communication from my body. Hear it, feel it. I mean, they're both kind of the same but different at the same time. So I'm not getting that intuitiveness. That doesn't mean everybody, because everybody to some degree has that intuitiveness, but everybody has it in the sense, but how much are you streaming down? So if you're streaming all of these three things really low down, then what happens? We are more subjective to what the range of the lower frequency has to offer. And that is the collective lower frequency. Collective lower frequency will have more impact on how you feel, what you see and don't see, how you experience, what you don't experience, what you prefer, don't prefer, because now that becomes much more of your driving force. Because the collective frequency, and the other part that comes in, and I'm going to change the color so we could actually see it, we also have the influence much more from the ego. Because the ego only works on lower frequency. You'll notice when you go into a meditative state and you activate or increase your frequency because you're in that calmer state, the ego has very little input. Because in most cases it can't even range that, because it wants to lower your frequency, but you're going into a higher frequency, so you're not even receiving it. So those are the inputs that you have, so you're more subject to that. And once you're to the collective is not only the frequencies, everything else that's in there. Whatever the stuff you've learned, whatever is being exposed by the media, or whatever is being shared by one another, then becomes more of your base of how you experience life. So your frequency, I guess, is lower, but it controls you. And when I say controls you, because you're still really in charge, but it actually has a very powerful effect on how you experience things. Are you doomed? Absolutely not. And you will have that experience. But what's happening right now is that we're stepping away by being controlled by all of this, especially the collective and all the other inputs that are coming in from the media, whatever else, and we're shifting and we're starting to pay more attention what comes from our human entity, from our soul and body, plus everything else that's being activated and upgraded within ourselves. Not only that, when we're tapping into the body, you're becoming more upgraded to Gaia's frequency and Gaia's operating upgraded version. It doesn't matter if it's the organic 3D or 2D platform, but it's also the DNA. So the DNAs, as they're coming back online, will also be instrumental in shifting whatever you're experiencing. Yeah, looks like a big mess, but I just wanted to share all that. So that's how it controls you. All right, so let's go through my little list here. That way I can make sure we're on track. So some of the things that play out, and I'm going to have to erase some of this as we go along, or I can move to the next page, actually. Let's do that. So I'm going to move some of these out of the way. Not to confuse you. You're getting a little peek of what's coming up. At least this page anyways. All right, so let's move this into place. Where we place our focus, what we pay attention to, expose ourselves to, engage with, play a massive role in our state, access to higher consciousness, in seeing the bigger picture. Oops, bring that back here. Bigger picture, and the availability of other possibilities. So let's go with the first one, where we place our focus. Now, this is key. Where do you notice that you are focusing on? Are you focusing on what's going on and putting a lot of attention and power to it? So if you're hearing stuff going on and around the world and you're focused on what's happening in the world and what is or isn't, who's doing what and who's not doing what, and you're paying, especially if you're paying attention to the media or anything of that nature, but even if you're not paying attention to the mainstream stuff and even your alternative stuff, which may be more upgraded than what the mainstream is and may show certain things, but where you're focusing your attention. So what's happening is, this is you again, or us, whoever. We'll start with you because this is about you. So this is you. And what's happening is you are using your focus, what you're focusing on that's being offered on the planet. Let's go into this color. I'm going to bring it back to my purple. So you're receiving within all of this input. You're focusing on what's going on in the world. Mostly polarized, mostly inverted, mostly generated from fear, generated from survival, generated from struggle, generated from right, wrong, good, bad, generated by, some people call it lies or call it, alternate reverse opportunity of understanding or whatever you may want to call it. So what you're doing is, because you're focusing on all of this, and this is your main focal point of all this is streaming in, what you're seeing out, what you're looking at on the screen, so here's the screen of life. What you're looking on the screen of life is going to be very, very reflective of what you're focusing on. This has, we have to understand, the screen has and it's not timelines, but multiple potentiality of streaming. So that means that the screen has many, 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 many movies playing at once. Okay? And they're overlayered. Okay? We're going to just put the layers. If you're focusing on what's going on and it's of a lower vibration, you're now going to be streaming this, and this will reflect back, or when I say reflect back, feedback to you the most matched version of that world. Let me give you an example. If you're so afraid of this so-called virus, for example, you're going to see many, many signs to reflect that fear, that restrictiveness, and all of that. So you're going to meet up with people that will remind you. You'll be drawn to certain media that will remind you. You will give a lot of power to, the mandates and what's happening, what's not happening, and it will trigger within you fear. So now you're putting in fear of this horrible thing. And guess what? You're now tapping into that frequency, that part of the screen, which a lot of collective have built this. This is part of the collective reflective. Remember, the collective reflective has many, 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 many movies playing at once. It's like going to a multiple streaming movie center and then moving from one movie to another. So what you're doing is that you're selecting the movie from that collective that is focused on this horrible thing. So you're now going to wear 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 masks. You're going to make sure that your hands are sanitized to the death or whatever it is until the skin falls off. You're going to put shields up. You're going to be afraid to even hug anybody or anything of that nature. So guess what? This is going to reflect back to you. So you're going to continue seeing it. What's the purpose of that? Well, so that you get saturation. You get to really experience that experience. So if you're paying attention to the dangers, you're paying attention to whatever, and I know some people could say, well, if you don't pay attention, you can risk yourself. Well, that's again the same thing. We're still focusing on, if I don't take extra precaution, I may get harmed, or that I may catch this thing and that it may kill me or something of that nature. So you're just tapping into that collective. Now remember, the media and all the so-called playmates are feeding this. They're reinforcing it over and over again. All the playmates in the medical and I'm not talking about all the medical and whatever, what's the other version? Governmental, let's call it that. Governmental and whatever else. They're feeding all of this, okay? So you got the medical, you got the government, and you got the media, of course, that projecting all of this, keeps reinforcing this. And the moment we start focusing on all that it's going to offer there, we're only seeing this. And that's how you start to experience. So what you're looking at, your focus is there, that's what you're going to see. But it doesn't only see that. When you're playing with this particular screen and it's reflecting to you, it's also going to operate the programs within you that matches it. Programs of fear, programs of survival, programs of that, but also not only when we're talking about the programs here, it's also what you're looking at, what the collective frequency has to represent while looking at this, and also the emotional charges around that. Especially if you have interconnected emotional charges that you may have adopted at one point or another in experience, even though you're purging it, it still will stimulate it. So this is the thing. So where we put our focus on, we kind of, some people say, well, what you focus, you create. Well, a lot of this is already created, but what you're going to do is you're going to self-experience it, and you may add your little twist to it. So you're going to put maybe a filter or two in between, to upgrade it somewhat if you want. But that's where your focus is going to be. So the important is you're selective on your focus. If you see that it actually doesn't resonate with you or lowers your frequency because it makes you feel bad, or you feel hopeless, or you feel fear, or you feel survival, or that I need to take precautions, or whatever it is, that's an indicator that you're starting to observe that. Especially if you can observe it. That means that your higher aspect of yourself is making itself present to say, hey, look at the way you're focusing. It's time to shift the focus. Now, don't be afraid that you're focusing on this and then you're going to possibly come back. Oh man, I got to be careful what I focus on because I can go back to this movie really easily. No, you don't have to do that because that will ensure that you're focusing on that. So you don't want to focus on not to focus. All you're doing is you're shifting your focus to things, and I'm not saying things that are better or whatever it is. You're focusing on things that resonate for you because you're a creator. If you want to see the world differently, shift your focus on things that match that differentness. But not only that, you're also tapping into what I was showing you before, your body, your human entity, your soul. So you're putting your focus on what really feels good to you. Now, when I say feel, I'm talking about an internal feeling, internal knowing, that part of you, not emotional feeling. Emotional feeling changes. It goes up, down, all over the place. You can feel fear, you can feel excitement, you can be happy, you can be sad, whatever it is. But true feeling is accessing that knowingness, that supportive sourceness within yourself, and also experiencing joy. So if you focus on and taking time to shift your focus from what's happening, because the thing is, if you focus on what's happening on the planet, you're basically contributing to support it. So the collective is not going to run out of juice because there's too many people, or many people, that are still focusing on the collective fear, the collective survival, the collective struggle, the collective earning, that I need to earn, or I'm good or bad, or whatever it is. And the idea that it's good or bad, whatever the game is. A game is a game. We're not going to put any power in that. However, as you're now tapping into yourself and you're seeing the world through your internal eyes, this is the eyes of your inner eye, which people call. So you're tapping into that resource that comes from a combination of the advanced human body, the advanced human entity, and your advanced soul. You're taking that as your main source, and then creating that world using that imagination. Because when you put imagination into action, you are creating. So you can start creating in your mind, but you also start creating by seeing the world the way you see it within yourself. Now, I know some people say, oh, that's fairy, hairy fairy, whatever that the terminology is, that you're making, stuff up. Well, that's how we create our world. All of this stuff is made up anyways. Even the collective stuff. It doesn't matter who fed that idea in there. It's still very much so all made up. You have to understand the world is made up. Every rule, every system, every mannerism of how to live life is made up. So what you're doing is you're going to make it up, but you're going to make it up with what is coming through you, the version of the world you're seeing. So you're creating another version, okay? You're creating a version that is reflective to you, which starts to supersede what the collective is. So you're upgrading it. You were going to say something, Kimberly? Okay. Okay, so if I forget that one, just remind me. So the first thing Kimberly was saying about focusing in the moment, okay, it's true. As you're focusing in the moment, all right, you're more likely and you actually have more access to the highest version of yourself or your present version. Okay? So you're looking at your present version of yourself and you're not looking at a version that's coming from the collective or what you've adopted is through all of this stuff at one point or another. You're basically looking at the highest version of yourself and you're much more prone to receive input from, and you're not focusing on the past. And I'm going to talk about that, but you're not looking at the past, what happened or what didn't happen or anything of that nature. In the moment, you're looking at the world as it is. Say, okay, great, it is as it is. Okay? How do I contribute from this moment? And when you're contributing, you're not looking at what happened or didn't happen or anything of that nature in the sense of collectively, besides your personal, but collectively. But you're now going to the powerful state of accessing the highest version of yourself and how do I create my world or the collective world from that view by staying present. Because the last thing you want to do, which the ego is very good at, is the past and the future. Not so good in the present. Actually doesn't like that too much because then you access other parts. So staying in the moment, you're not inducing the past or the future, and you're not engaged in the ego that much at all. Because as you're staying in the present, you're looking at where I'm at now. Like even the example you said with the visa bill, okay? That I created this visa bill and now I'm afraid I can't pay it. So the thing is, the moment you start focusing that I may not be able to pay it and you put a lot of fear into it, then you're basically tapping into the collective. If you don't pay your bills, you're going to be homeless. If you don't pay your bills, they're going to come after you. If you don't pay the visa bill or whatever it is, so you're putting on the focus of that. So you're not accessing a higher version, you're accessing a diluted version of the collective, maybe part of your version, could be an older version, because we all have older versions that have experienced, challenges around money or anything of that nature, right? And I can relate very well with this visa bill thing. And we have more than one that we would like to play with. But at the same time, we're not going to put fear in that. So we look at it and say, okay, our intention is not to not take care of it. However, I'm not going to put any focus on it. If I can do something immediately to make sure things stay on track to some degree, no problem. If I can't get there, well, they can take it all away. It doesn't matter because it's not my game. I'm not going to give power to that. Because the moment you're accessing the fear that I can't pay for it, then you're really looking at an older version of you, but really what the collective representation, what that means, and what this is enforcing on you. When you shift away from there, you're accessing more potentialities and possibilities, and you can access a higher part of you that is not going to be afraid of it, is not going to put attention to it, but you will feel more empowered to take certain steps. So what is these steps are? Maybe certain things will come along, so for you to address it, maybe chip away at it or something of that nature, or other opportunities to do something else with it. It opens up a lot of option. So you're not looking at the future, because that's what we're saying, the future, I'm not going to be able to pay for it. And the past may have been, each time I've gotten into that. And the ego is going to go, we got to be afraid, we got to be afraid, we got to be afraid. Fear, 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 fear. And this, like I said, the ego has a very powerful story-making capacities. And it's going to create stories that if you don't pay it, they can arrest you, or they can take you away, take everything away from you. You can end up on the street. It will come up all types of things. Pretty cool, actually, what it can do, but as an experiential part. So the first thing you want to shift is look at, what's my fear about not paying this Visa card? Doesn't mean you don't take care of it, but what's my fear? you want to look at the stories related to it. What it's there. It says, okay, I'm going to be on the streets. So what? I'm just saying that. I'm saying, so what? I end up on the streets. Is that my choice, my preference? Maybe not, but there's all aspects of me that are going to work towards not being that direction. So you really want to look at those stories. You want to look at, I'm going to be on the streets, I'm going to be delinquent, I'm going to lose my credit, I'm going to, do whatever, right? You want to look at it. So you write out all the stories that come up. You acknowledge each one, appreciate each one for the experiences provided, even the present moment of having the fear of not going to be able to pay and whatever comes along. Appreciate all of it. Blast it with love. Love it to death, if you want to call it that. Love it to transmutation or transformation. Yes. So, but you can just put it into the field. So that's the first thing you want to do. You've created it for a reason, and that reason was to kind of feel what that experience feels like, what the collective has put power into it, and maybe some of your past stuff where, in the past I'm saying this life, but also in previous lives, where, you felt that you were less than empowered, or the fact that you were, had a certain particular limited experience because of some similarities to that. So what you want to do is you want to address all of that. So you're bringing yourself to the present. And in the present, right now, everything is the way it is. And this is all a game. Keep this in mind. It's just a game. Okay? You're playing the game, but the game can change at any point in time, shift at any point in time, because you're choosing that. So shift away from the fear component. So that's the first thing. Just pay attention to where your focus is, and you want to shift that. Because the focus and paying attention, you're paying attention to negative stuff, whatever it is, then you're going to see everything that reflects that in a way, because you're looking at the screen. Like for somebody is afraid of being taken advantage or hurt, or that the world will go crazy and everybody's going to kill each other. What are they going to do? They're going to be drawn to movies that reflect that. Movies that are around that. Around survival, around being killed, around violence, around the fact of planetary destruction, and so forth. Or if you're afraid of alien invasion, you're going to watch movies that reflect that. But that's just the movie. Then you're looking at the movie of life, because there's many people experiencing all types of things that are going to be part of that movie. So you're gonna pay attention to really where your focus is, and so forth. And then the other thing is what you expose yourself to. Pay attention. What am I drawn to? What movies am I watching? What news am I listening to? What I'm drawn to, what other people are saying or doing, or the group of people that you're involved. That's why the engagement comes in. Engage with. Am I getting together with friends that are just, oh, this is dangerous, this is bad, look at what happened to me or what happened to them, or did you hear this, did you hear that? So pay attention to where you're drawn and what you're engaging with, because that's all stimulating not only what you're going to see, but also what filters you're going to activate and deactivate that was put in there so that you can actually have that particular experience. So if you're feeling that, you're getting around people that focus on negativity, focus on the lower state of the human experience or anything of that nature, just pay attention to it and say, well, that's pretty cool. How do I choose to play with it? Do I choose to still be myself and say, yeah, I can understand and appreciate that, and I've already had that example and I've had that experience myself, but I made a choice. I made a choice to let the game be the game, but I'm also seeing the game differently. I'm not seeing myself playing with fear or that, struggle, survival. I'm kind of looking at it differently. I choose to just observe it and really, shape my life accordingly. Now, someone would say, hey, that's pretty interesting and so forth, and they may join you in your vision. And others may say, nah, that's crazy talk, whatever it is. Oh, you got to pay attention to what's happening in the world. You got to make sure that you leave and do whatever you need to do because, this is going to, impact you in a negative way or whatever it is. Okay? So what you want to do from that is you're still going to be yourself. You're still going to look at it the way you choose to see it. And then what? They may choose not to engage with you, or that, in fact, they're not going to engage with you that often, because you're kind of not holding their bubble. Because we have what we call collective, or what we call cluster groups, or what do you call it, cluster consciousness. Okay. Cluster consciousness. What does that mean? You got a group of people that like to reflect on everything that's going on in the world. So they're creating a certain energy, what we call a cluster, and that cluster accesses a certain level of consciousness. So their focus is going to be on the world is falling apart and you have to protect yourself or anything of that nature. So if you enter in there, you have the option to internalize it and start to experience with it, or the fact that you can say, oh, I'm observing this, I'm seeing that that's not part of my makeup any longer, and then you can shift away. These clusters are immediate family, extended family, work environment, friendships, can be organizations like religious organizations and other groups that you may be involved. But it doesn't stop there. The community, the area that you're living in the sense of saying the country, the state, whatever it is. Those are all different layers of clusters. And of course, they expand as they go along, but you have all of that available, including the main collective of the planet itself. So you have the option if you want to tap into any of those clusters or not. But you're here to change and transform those clusters, so you're not going to put that much attention to the clusters itself. So you're going to look at what you expose yourself to, what type of media, what type of content, what type of friendships or connections, what is being said or not said, who you engage with will play a massive role on how you roll in your state. Let's put your there. Didn't work out so well. Okay, your state. And if your state, because if you're in a state of fear, if you're in a state of worry, if you're in a state where you don't feel good, guess what happens? Your access to higher consciousness is reduced. Your access to see the bigger picture is reduced. Your availability to possibilities are reduced. Your imagination is reduced. Your excitement of the game is reduced. All of it reduces. So this is the thing. It does play a very powerful impact on how you feel and what you access. So if you're feeling low, do you think you're receiving the same perfect, clear streaming from, let's say, streaming of your higher self, your soul, your human entity in its highest form, or your bodies in its highest form? It's going to diminish it, reduce it, filter it in many ways. So this is the thing, is that it plays a massive role in changing. So once your state is there, your access to higher consciousness, even seeing the bigger picture, seeing how all of it is being orchestrated, how all of it has so much potentiality, how all of this is a beautiful dancing game to help humanity to shift. You don't see that. You see just a small part of it, and you just see the immediate stuff, what's going on. When you're in the present moment, and you're not playing with all of that, those filters open up. You are now seeing more of the bigger picture. So you're not going to get lost in what's going on day to day in the government, or what's in the, the electional stuff, or what's happening throughout the world. You're going to see the world as a big picture, and you're going to see everything that's playing out and saying, wow, pretty interesting. How do I choose to shift this? What am I going to focus on? What am I going to put my attention on? How am I going to feel about the whole thing? So if you're seeing it for what it is, a game, and the game is serving in a way to actually arrive to saturation and completion What I mean by saturation, you're going to, if you, somebody, and lots of people want to finish this whole polarity in its intensity. And this is one of the reasons the polarities have accentuated earlier this year. The good, bad, right, wrong, light, dark, all of that stuff accentuated very powerfully so that we would have the saturation, see the polarity, and be able to shift. Now, it's not going from one end to the other, and that could happen, but then kind of meeting in the middle, going into that inclusiveness, that wholeness. So by accessing the bigger picture, seeing the bigger picture, you see the game, and while you're seeing the game, the availability of other possibilities are there. Now you can see multiple capacities, which you will see those capacities, and you will add your capacities, your capabilities, your vision, your projection of that world. And each one of us is tuned to do so, and as you do so, you're advancing the whole collectiveness. So what does it involve, advancing the collective? That is bringing down, and that's not effort, it happens. You're raising the frequencies. Everything that was designed in the lower frequencies, what we call the, like I was saying, the inverted 3D, not to write it all out again, which has been created in the inverted 3D, inverted matrix, inverted 2D, and 2D, what was created there starts to lose its capacity and accessibility, and less people can go into the collective range that would bring you down to this. It starts to lift everybody's frequency collectively so that a lot of this older stuff is not accessible any longer as it was. So that's what's happening by you, by shifting your focus and looking at the possibilities. We're on a playground that is completely going through a redesigning, and we're doing it. You are all instruments of it. You're bringing your experience, which is the physical experience, the human entity experience, your soul experience, merged together, and you are now creating a new reality, a personal reality and different levels of reality and the collective reality. And that's even before we looking at the reality of the solar system, the reality of the galaxy and the universe. Okay? So it opens up the possibilities in a huge way. All right, let's move along. So constantly being, did you want to say something, Kimberly? Okay. Constantly being exposed to what distracts us and leads us in obscure direction. Oh, give me a second here. All right, you're back. I lost you there for a sec. Okay. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. Yes, yes. So the question was, do you want to say something else about that? Yeah, yes, yes. So the question is, does technologies, different technologies are being introduced and so forth, frequencies, you know, being EMFs and whatever else, frequencies and sound waves and spectrums of light and whatever else that are shown on a lot of times on our screens and so forth, does it affect our frequency? Absolutely. Now, the degree it affects depending on where you're at, depending on how you're integrated with that lower stuff. So you're going to find that if your frequency is at a certain range, if it's in a certain range here, especially here, it's going to be the highestly impactful. Here it's going to be a little less impactful, and as you continue going, it's going to be less and less impactful. Now, while we're doing the transitional, if we can limit the exposure of certain sound frequencies, certain other frequencies of technologies, and of course we can't completely, and also, what the screen may operate within ourselves and so forth. It gives you an easier chance to transmute it or to shift above it and to get into a range where it has less and less effect on you. So when you're doing that, you're shifting away from the lower frequencies and you're going into the higher frequencies, so they have less impact on you. But while you're going through the transition, it would be best to reduce it as much as possible. Not to be afraid of it, not to make it a big job and I got to do this or else I'm not going to increase my frequencies. But at the same time, take whatever action you can or steps that you can without putting any fear on it or any necessity to it. Now, we have the option of how much we expose ourselves to in many, many cases. Sometimes we don't have certain options as easily available depending on where you are, especially if they just finished putting a 5G and they activate it. Now, the 5Gs are not activated all over the place. They're not activated to full capacity anyways. They're running at the lower range, so they're not going to have the same impact they normally would, but eventually a lot of it is encoded to be able to serve on that higher plane at a later date. So yes, reducing as much as that until your frequencies are to increase, that will be highly beneficial. All right. Was there anything else, Kimberly? Okay, so that was it. All right. So constantly being exposed to what distracts us and leads us into obscure directions. So it's so easy to get distracted. It's so easy. You may be working on something and all of a sudden you get distracted to the fact of hearing what the news has to say, or that what other people have to say, in the sense that, still reflects that older state of being, that older frequency, lower frequency, and so forth. Pay attention to what you get distracted to. Some of us are addicted to lower frequency stuff, listening to so polarized, say, news, watching polarized movies, shows, music, whatever's going on. Polarized, playing with others, with ourselves, in the sense of playing with others that, like those clusters I was talking about, connecting with people that, played at that lower state. Do you want to mute yourself, Kimberly? Okay, thanks. Sometimes you get some feedback of sound. All right, so the obscure direction. So you basically, we're constantly bombarded by it, and everything wants your attention. And right now, there's a lot of grabbing attention on social media, on regular television, a lot of stuff, even the stuff we're watching on our computers, telephones, pads, you name it. Plus what other people are saying with each other. So the thing is, just notice the distraction. There's a lot of capacity to do that and kind of shift away from it as you choose. Now, be selective what you listen to, and don't, if I shouldn't say don't, that's not the word. If you find yourself drawn to it, pay attention to how it feels. And it's like, ooh, it doesn't feel good, then, or it triggers certain emotions, and you say, yeah, I'm not going to focus on that. Maybe you want to hear just a bit of it just to get an update, but that's about it. You're not going to get into the state of where it becomes, because it will, especially like even taking the electional stuff that's going on, with all this, corruption and who won, who didn't win, who's saying this, who's saying that. There's a lot of polarized ideas of one way or another. It can take you in obscure directions. And what are some of those obscure? It may trigger polarity within you. Emotional charges. Oh, I hate this person and I love this person. Oh, look at those deceivers, and look, we need to, and you can put a lot of energy of wanting to shift from this to this, for example, and saying, oh, look at all those, all this corruption, we got to make it right. Well, that can really keep you playing in the polarized world. So you could see the two sides and you say, I'm not going to put any attention on the side. I'm going to pay attention to the world that I see, where supersedes both sides, because neither side is all, the perfect match, yeah, one is closer to, you know, having one side to the other, and one's, you know, acting more of a transitional, and the other one is giving us an intense opposite. Both are going to serve one way or another, but it's a matter of I choose to see the world as I see it, and I see, you know, these individuals coming into play, but I'm going to instruct these individuals by seeing my world on how they're going to play and what, you know, the ways they're thinking, because it can significantly impact the advancements we are hired to do. What does that mean? You came here to advance the human experience. You came here to advance the playground, the operating system on the playground, how we utilize the playground, how we actually bring online our truest form of our human expression. Like I've said in other episodes and anything else that I've shared in workshops and even the podcasts, we haven't been operating in our true design. That came in when originally we were reseeded, the planet was retooled, we're a new species of that time, 15,000 years ago, and then, you know, the modification happened 10,000 years ago and whatever else. So with that understanding, you came here to experience the human experience in its current form at different stages, but you came here to play a powerful role, to play a role. It doesn't matter where you're at. You're playing a powerful role because you're part of it. You're plugged in. This is why you take on a physical form. This is why you take on a human entity. Those are direct plug-ins to this human experience and planet. The soul coming in is bringing its multidimensionality into play with some of the experiences as human, if it had human experiences. Some have not, but some have, or others have. But it's going to bring that so that you're coming in and you're advancing what you came here to do. You're all powerful beings. You came in with potentiality. You came here with imagination and the capacities to create. You came here tuned and tooled to the degree that you did to be instrumental to upgrade the human experience and to upgrade the playground. So, constantly exposing ourselves to all of this stuff that's projecting that polarized part may be cool to reach a saturation point, but many of you already have, and many of you kind of can't get out of that saturation point because you're kind of swimming in it pretty deeply. But the others are just about close to getting to that saturation point. But pay attention that, yeah, you know something? This is not my experience any longer. And you have to remember, you cannot demonize the current human experience, the current role players, the current state of the human experience. You come here to see how it evolved, and in some cases devolved, and now it's going through the evolutionary process. But you're coming here to participate in that evolution, to move it forward. So pay attention to where your attention goes. Pay attention to what is distracting you. Distraction is an all-time high. You think technology advancement is helpful? It is. The technology of the internet and, you know, having different resources has definitely accessed connections much more, accessed more information, different viewpoints that wouldn't have been available before. What we have access to now was not accessible before. But at the same time, as a powerful a tool that it is, like what you're receiving right now, to help you access more of yourself and to advance, it is also many, many channels of stuff going on is distraction. Major, 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 major distraction. So just pay attention to that. And you shift away from the distraction and you utilize what benefits you. All right, let's carry on. The other one, I started to talk about that. And just see if I'm going to put that in the next page. I got lots of noise on this page. Let's move this over here. Okay. Let's see how many more reminders I have. Oh, pretty cool. That was the only one. All right. Yes? Well, the thing is, as much as, okay, so Cameron asked the question about, you know, do I stay in the dark or to stay unaware of this 5G that's rolling out everywhere on the planet at the moment, or, you know, in the areas and so forth, or do I, you know, learn about it and so forth and put attention in? Well, the thing is, if it comes into your attention and you just kind of want to do it, but you have to understand, a lot of the information that's coming in about the 5G, so sorry about that, the 5G part, okay, there's a lot of information around it, okay? The technical world says, oh, it's a huge advancement, you know, the technical world, technology is saying it's a huge advancement in speed, blah, blah, blah. But then there is also what they call the effects that 5G does. Now 5G is has a very specific frequency that can alter the frequency within our body. And when we're talking about the frequency within our body, it's, you know, the what we consider water, which is kind of the frequency that's in our body. Depending on the frequency, because I think it starts off at about 20K, 20,000, could go up to 80K frequency. Now, what happens is the higher the frequency is, the more influence it has on the body. Right now it's starting on the low and whatever else. So my point is at this, to answer the question, do not put a lot of focus on it, because that can and has the capacity to generate fear. So if you're going to focus on shifting yourself, because a lot of times you say, oh, I got to shift myself because that way I can not be affected from the 5G. Well, that can be from fear. Most people have fear. I'm afraid of 5G and I got to raise my vibration. You don't raise your vibration with fear, because fear interferes. Okay? You cannot find a solution through fear. Fear may motivate you to take certain steps, but is it going to be the most advanced step? Is it going to be from a higher state of frequency and possibility, probability, whatever you want to call it? Or is it going to be from lower? So, yes, you've heard 5G has been rolling out. Towers are going all over the place, whatever else. You know, they're starting off with this. Some areas the towers are up, but they're not running. The range may be low, whatever it is, okay? However, as a collective, as much as we may bring in this 5G and we have chosen, is it going to impact us? Maybe possibly for a period of time, and it's already starting to show some effects from it, but it's also in the lower frequency range, lower state of being ourselves, lower frequency. But that is only based on who needs to be it. If you don't feel drawn to learn about it, don't. Leave it alone. Work on everything that stimulates fear from you. Clear that out. Clear out the old versions of you. Clear the fact that something else has power over you. Because a lot of times you say, 5G and those nasty people that are rolling it out, you know, we got to shut it down. We got to do whatever. Burn the towers down, you know, like some of that happened. Then we're actually going into victim mode, and then we're going into survival fight mode, you know, fight or flight type of thing. I'm going to leave the area. I'm going to, now if you feel guided to leave the area, that's fine. You leave the area. Not because of the 5G, because, you know, the energies, including the 5G, may not be resonant for you. You say, okay, I'm going to leave. However, you're not going to go into fight mode. You're not going to go into survival mode. You're going to see, okay, they're rolling this out, but you're going to go into a higher state. So you're basically, if it brings up any fear, you want to look at all the fears. Because like I said, if you're looking at these you're now going into the state of disempowerment. The moment you give 5G power, you're disempowered. You can transmit all the frequency you want, and I know some people may challenge me. You can transmit all the 5G you want. It's up to you if you're going to use it or not. That's the most horrible arrow I can create. It's up to you how much of this will influence your physical, emotional, your mental experience. So, personally, do I give power to it? No, I don't even think about it. They can roll out whatever they want. I know, I look at the world that the 5G, which eventually is going to be used to advance humanity by raising their vibration, because that's really what it's going to ultimately be used for, and the frequencies will change, because this has not only that range, because the higher range it goes, the shorter distance it goes. And yes, it may impact, but that's when we're in the lower frequency where your body's still operating on that. Even this impact, because of the frequency of the planet, is neutralizing a lot of it. The codes that we have, the frequencies that we're accessing is neutralizing. So the lower frequency is not going to affect your higher state, your higher frequency. So the point is, access that higher aspect of yourself by getting rid of all the lower aspects. People say, how do I raise my frequency? Raise my frequency. How do I raise my frequency? How? Well, by being yourself is the first thing, but it is get rid of, clear out all your lower frequency and older versions of yourself. Because I used to give an example. Remember the hot air balloons? I got a little flamethrower here. This is your hot air balloon. You got all these things attached to it, I guess. And there's a basket. My old example, I haven't used this one in a long time. Lousy drawing, but anyways. What happens is this hot air balloon, us, okay, we're in here, this is us. What is the hot air balloon is? The more heat we put in, the higher it wants to go. We're constantly feeding in here from source essence, capacities to rise, so going into higher frequency. But if we got all these bags attached to this thing, weights, it will still rise, but it rises way less, and it really needs a lot more energy to do so, a lot more heat, much more increased vibrations streaming through. The easy part is start cutting all of these off. Because as you remove the weights, the higher it soars. And what's these weights? It's old versions of you. Oops, that's a terrible L. Old versions of you. But not only that. Old stories, belief systems that were created in the inverted world, ideas and perceptions of yourself, attachments to collective ideas, and so forth. This is why we get triggered, so that we get to see this weight and say, oh, it's time to acknowledge I got this weight, and it's time to clear it out. I'm going to cut it off. So as you cut off all of these older versions of yourself, older tensions of yourself, the older lower vibrations, your vibration increases. So that's how it raises. It's pretty well automatic. It's automatic, very much so. So you're raising your vibration by letting go of older vibration. Because remember, you are source. You're very high vibration. You're the ultimate and highest vibration, each one of us. And we're in the field that supports higher vibration. Now we may cap off at certain levels, how far we can go, only so that we can maintain the experience. But I'm not talking about the current experience, the upgraded version of our designed experience. And that's all you're doing. So you focus on that. And some of this may be stuff you've adopted around 5G, around wars, around the ideas that others are in control of you, and so forth. So that's how you do it. I haven't used that one for a long time. Okay, go ahead. You were going to say something? Nope. It looks like I lost Kimberly again. All right. Some of the things that actually adjust. And I've covered some of that, but I'm going to enhance it again. Living in the past. That plays a role. Oh, she's coming back. Welcome back. Oh, okay. I lost you. All right. Kimberly's back. All right. We're trying to do this with the phone, and she's across the country, and where she doesn't have too many bars on her cell phone. So, anyways, living in the past, that adjusts your frequency. Can lower your frequency or caps your frequency. Why? Okay. Let me clear some of this stuff here. I can go on the next page, but let's do this. So here you are. This is your present state of you. Present you. We also call the moment. Now, when you're in the moment, you're the most current version of yourself. So this is the past. This is your entry point. Entry point. Let's call that entry point. All right. So this is your entry point. Along the way, you've had different experiences. So this is your life stream. During your life stream, you have to understand, say you've been here 30 years, 50 years, 60 years, or more. Along the way, you've had different experiences. You've had also different exposures. You were different versions of you. So these are different versions of you. Oops. Well. Versions of you. So what you're doing, if you tap in, every time you're reflecting on the past, at any point at this time, what are you accessing? You're accessing a version of you, older memories, and a version of the planet, the planetary collective. Now, it's all in the memory because that version doesn't exist any longer. However, you're reflecting on that. So when you're doing that, when you're focusing on the past, what happened, what didn't happen, who played this, who played that, what labels you may have put in, what definitions you may have had about yourself. So every time you go into living in the past, or what happened, what was playing out on the planet at that time, what was happening with other people that was in your life stream at that point in time. You have to understand, every time you go that, you're going down to an older version. Let's write that down. Older version. You shift away from the most current version, and now you're looking at the older version. You're not in a moment, you're looking at older versions. So that will lower your frequency because you're going into your lower frequency state because you were having different frequency experiences then, or different experiences. You were playing with different lower versions of friendships, connections, partners, you name it. You were looking at the older vibration and lower vibration of the planetary chain and the older vibration of the collective at that time. So you were accessing that. So every time you're looking at the away from the present and you're going into the past, at any point in time, you're lowering your vibration. Now you can have that trip. It's a memory lane, whatever it is. It's not about destroying the past as memory and as your experience, you're just getting rid of the labels and so forth. So if your reflection goes back to any of that, you want to get in there and look at what judgment you may have had, what label of yourself you apply to it, and what definition, what you defined yourself to be at those points in time. Even if you're looking at, oh, the good old days. Good old days based on what? You know, at that time, an experience is an experience. But we're way ahead of that. We're moving forward. This is the thing. We're not here to stay stuck. We're here to move forward. So living in the past will lower your frequency. Playing with polarity, right, wrong, good, bad, all of that will stimulate a lower frequency. Because full spectrum does not have polarity, right? So just pay attention to where your polarity, you're good, you're bad, this is right, this is wrong, and whatever that. So playing in polarity and putting a lot of emphasis on polarity, that will affect you. Playing in fear will lower your frequency. Playing in survival will lower your frequency. Worry. Why would worry? Well, where does worry fit in? Worry is the other part. Future. Let's get rid of the fancy balloon here. Future. Okay, so we're going to look at the future. Present moment. Present you. So if you're focusing on the future, all aspects of you are not going to pay attention to the future. Just the ego. Where is it? I must have got rid of it. Ego, or it's on the other page. Ego is going to project on the future. But the collective is saying the future. If you don't make this choice, it's going to be a certain way. The future is limiting. So worry is about, like the credit card example the other person provided. I got credit card debt. How am I going to pay for it? I don't know if I even can pay for it. That is your ego projecting into the future with a preconceived idea. You're not in the moment. This, say even this, how am I going to pay for it, is coming from a past experience or the collective experience. And it's plugging it in. How am I going to pay for it? How am I going to dress? Oh man, if the COVID thing, all this other stuff goes crazy. How am I going to live? How are we going to survive? That's just projection of the future. Unnecessary. Absolutely, totally unnecessary. But the ego wants to keep you busy, so it's going to distract you. So you're going to go. So the whole thing about worrying is saying, what am I worrying about? If you're in this moment, right now I am where I am. I don't know what tomorrow is going to be because I haven't created tomorrow yet, because the future does not exist. It's not like you have timelines anymore. You only have one timeline. You plug in whatever you choose as a timeline. But what gets plugged in is whatever currently is now. That's why you can't project the future, because you're going to change. Let's change this. You are going to change along the way, because each moment you're advancing, you're shifting, your focus is going one direction or another, your energy is going to change, your frequency is going to change, your accessibility is going to change. So how could you say, this is what I want to create, when you're still back here? You don't even know until you get to this point what you're going to create. So the thing is, the ego is going to say, well, we got to worry about it. We got to start planning, or whatever it is. If you feel from internal that you need to take certain steps, then take the steps, but live in the moment. Right now, this is what I can do. Right now, this is the steps I can take. Right now, I'm just choosing to see what my possibilities are and just focus on that. Because that's what you need to do, is live in the moment. Each moment. Because that's all that exists, is the moment. So you can't worry in the moment. Even if you have a health ailment, let me be present. I may be feeling these sensorial experiences, extensified or whatever. You're not going to worry, oh, am I going to... It's like me, which were some of the things that I would normally do sometimes. It's like, oh, I got to do an episode. Like today, I got to do an episode. I'm in my worst state possible. Migraines off the chart, physicality off the charts, whatever it is. I left it. I said, okay, I don't know if I can do a 4 o'clock thing. And it's early in the morning, and it was all night too, and the day before that. So you look at it and say, well, you know, I'm going to wait till the last moment, see how many shifts happen. I'm still going to take whatever steps I feel guided to take. And if I'm ready for it, I'm ready. If I'm not, hey guys, it's postponed. That's it. I'm doing it now. Why? Because I allowed those changes to take place to prepare me for the moment, for that present moment. And here I am. An hour and 53 minutes of dancing together, and I'm still functional. In fact, I'm actually a little bit more comfortable than I was. All right, so I'm not going to worry about it. Am I going to be able to do it or not? Yeah, I used to have that default. Sometimes it creeps in too. Am I going to be able to do it? Am I going to be able to have another episode tomorrow for the podcast or whatever it is? Like if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I'm going to do my best, but I'm not going to worry about it. I'm not going to be feeling that I'm disappointing somebody. If you don't get it, you don't get it. You get to catch up. There's a lot of material coming out anyways. Okay, the other thing that lowers your other engagements. Where am I putting my attention? Who am I playing with? Am I playing with stuff that doesn't match my present state or the state that I'm feeling within myself? That's going to shift yours. The media, what you're listening, what you're focusing, media, music, music, and then we'll talk about food. So, media, music. Remember, music, media has vibration, has frequencies in it. A lot of it was created in the inverted 3D, even if the melodies sound pretty cool. Just the fact that it's under a certain hertz frequency is already a factor. Of course, there is more stuff coming in at 432 versus the 440, but the lyrics, the intent behind it, what state was the person when they made the music? Were they in survival? Were they in fear? Were they in judgment? Were they in anger? Whatever. You can sense that, and then you don't put your attention on that because it's going to affect you. But there's a lot of music that is now created that harmonizes with a higher aspect of self, where people are connecting to higher realms of beingness and so forth. So you're going to gravitate to that. You're going to pay attention to how you feel when you're listening to the music, when you're watching certain movies, shows, videos, whatever you want to call it. You're going to pay attention to that, and then you adjust accordingly, because that will change your frequency to the degree that you're open for it. Now, while we're still getting more grounded in our higher frequency and working towards higher frequency, if you can minimize those exposures, it would best serve. Now, somebody says, well, can I go back to those frequencies or that music afterwards? Yeah, you can, but you're going to notice it doesn't feel good. I'm not an avid music listener. In fact, I hardly ever listen to music. There is some high vibration music I do listen to that Marco puts out and whatever else, time to time. We use it on our videos here, especially in the introduction stuff or when we're doing the meditation. But anyways, when I hear some of the older music, if it's on some place where I'm going, they're playing the music, you can sense the frequency around that. Some music reflects an old world altogether, especially now that it's Christmas. If you have memories that remind you of the past, you're going to listen to Christmas music and it's going to feel, it makes you feel kind of good because of the fact that the Christmas music reminds you of a time that you've labeled as being, it was a pretty cool time, it was with family or whatever it is. But, if you're in a higher vibration, you listen to the older music, for example, and it's like, ooh, it doesn't feel good. Not only does it feel good, because it's reflecting an you're reflecting an older world that you're not there anymore. And even that frequency, that whatever was involved in there, oh, the good old days, blah, 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 whatever it is, may not resonate with you. And you have to respect that and say, yeah, not interested in that. I'm not going to force myself to listen to that because it's Christmas. I'm just giving you an example. This is just an example. So that's where the music comes in. So you got the media and the music and everything that you're exposed. So all of these will affect you. When it comes to the last part, food, drink, all of that stuff, what you drink, what you consume, liquid form, and what you eat, remember, food has vibrations. Food is a frequency. Food is not real, as we are not real. We're all just spectrums of light, basically holographic expression, and so is food. But we carry a certain frequency in our holographic projection. What we consume does play a role. How much? It will depend. Now, you will notice as your vibrations are increasing, as you notice within yourself that you are accessing higher consciousness, you will notice, first of all, you feel reducing the amount of what we call food and liquid that we put into our body. Why? Because you don't need that much input to because you're getting the higher vibration from what Gaia is offering, what you're getting from the sun, what you're getting from your environment, what you're getting from your own accessibility as you're increasing. So the reduction occurs where you're not allowing so much food to go into you because you feel, I feel less hungry, I feel less to go one way or another. The other thing is, you're also going to notice that certain foods your body refuses or starts to reflect back to you, hey, we're not into this anymore. You're also going to notice that the vibration of the food, the heaviness, a lot of people relate to that, the heaviness and how the body processes it is going to change and has been changing for a lot of people. A lot of people have shifted their diet tremendously. Now, food, like I said, has vibration. The freshest growing food without any manipulation will be the highest reflection of Gaia's offering, the sun's offering, and the energies coming in. Once it goes through a factory, once it goes through a heavy processing, it diminishes that. Big time. If it's going through a sentient being, for example, eating animal flesh food or whatever it is, it already has gone through different stages. Now, the different stages, yeah, if you could say, well, I eat the most free range and all of that, eating the most organic food and blah, 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 it will affect you less. However, even the treatment of the animals and so forth plays a role in it. But the fact that you're focusing on 2 stages of your natural state will lower your frequency. So you're going to find, hey, I feel drawn to that. Hey, have the experience, reach the saturation point. But at some point, you're going to notice that you shift away from that. More and more people are going into vegetarian, then vegan. And then more to fruitarian, and then eventually, breatharians and sun gazing or whatever it is, because it just restores more and more to our natural state where we access those energies within our environment rather than using mediators. Mediator being the fruit, mediator being vegetables and other grains and whatever else that we use. Secondary mediator would be the animal kingdom, because you have to understand, we're designed to take energy from the sun, from the air, from the water, from the energy coming from Gaia. That's our natural state, completely. Food has never been a requirement until it was programmed for it to become a requirement, when that whole inverted stuff got plugged in, and we're reversing that. This is why we're having less drawn to that. The other part is the fact that when the modification came in, all of a sudden we needed a mediator. Well, now you're eating plant life, so-called. Now, our bodies were designed to use fruit as a sensorial experience and to create an intimate connection with that and so forth. And the fruits offered you the fruit to you, so you don't even have to go pick it, way in advance or anything like that. It was offered because it would drop off, or the fact that you could see when it was ripe as an offering. But that was more for a sensorial experience. Then when the modification came in, all of a sudden we needed a mediator. And the mediator is now, we can't get direct energy from the sun to the same degree as we were before, from the air, the water, and the soil or Gaia. And then all of a sudden now we're eating plant food that basically gets the energy from where? The sun, the air, the water, the soil, or Gaia. So that was the mediator. Then the next level of mediator that got plugged in later on was now you're eating animal flesh, or sentient being flesh, or whatever you want to call it. Again, all of it is holographic, but regardless, each time it alters the frequency and it creates a further disconnect from our natural state. So here, what are we doing? We're eating animals that eat what? Plant life. So now you're eating, consuming light frequency that has now gone through an animal from plant life, which the plant life is getting its energy from the sun, the air, the water, the soil, and so forth. So you've now created two stages of separation. And so what's happening is you'll notice the reversal of, disconnecting, feeling drawn to connecting to higher vibrational food, because we're going more and more natural. Eventually that, not that it's going to happen overnight, but it's going to happen along the way. And this is why a lot of people have shifted for the amount of consumption, what they consume, and have been shifting more and more to something that has less stages. Processed food and so forth, because when it's processed at this point in time, it does alter it because it's going through different mechanical devising and whatever else. The food is left changed, and there's other energies plugged into it that may not be as super conducive for it. Now, some people say, well, I'm drawn to, junk food, or I'm drawn to as comfort food to default. Well, the comfort food, what happens is, as our vibration is going through different stages, may be plugged in from a past aspect of ourselves. And because we're going back and visiting there, it may feel in a way to you, oh, okay, I can relate with this. I can relate with this frequency. And because I'm uncomfortable here, because I'm now challenging. The only reason you feel uncomfortable, really, is because your natural operating system is emerging and is coming more online, and your old version of yourself is competing with it, and it's actually going through a transmutation. So this is why change, and the ego likes to use that as change is scary, because change is really our natural state, and evolving is our natural state, and to access higher aspects of ourselves in the human experience is our natural state. But of course, all of these programs have been designed for that. But the thing is, it doesn't matter how much of it is here, you are superseding it as you're going along. So you're going to find that you're going to be more open to shifting what you're consuming. And the same thing applies to drink and other substances you take, including some of the medical stuff. Okay? Eventually, you're going to be, as you're going along, and some of you have already, you're now going to herbs and whatever else from the pharmaceutical stuff. You're going to notice that the stuff that you drink is less processed and make it more natural as possible. Drinking clean water that doesn't have a lot of other latent frequencies within it, through filtration or whatever it is. But you're also going to notice certain things like alcohol or whatever else. It alters your frequency, lowers your frequency, and actually gives you accessibility to lower frequencies that are not going to be supportive. So by paying attention to that, so you're going to shift away from what you're drinking, what you're eating, and so forth. Even including the judgment, because you want to get rid of any judgment, because a lot of people go into veganism from, carnival, something like that, eating flesh food, for example. But then you have judgment about everybody else that eats it. You're going to transmute that part because you don't want to have judgment. Everybody's going to be exposing themselves to whatever frequency. And you could say, yeah, that's creating an impact on the planet. Yes, and yes it is, but it is all reversible anyways. But let them have their experience. However you live yourself, pay attention to the changes you're having and follow those changes, and then you kind of radiate that change, and you'll see others will get on the bandwagon if they choose to do so. If not, they may not happen anytime soon. It may happen later or may never happen. And if they choose not to make it happen and they can't relate to the new frequency, they may choose to leave, or another soul will come in, or whatever it is. So food is is also impactful. So those are the things. Now let's get the last one, and then we get to, whoops, let's move. Okay. All right. Well, I never thought I was going to be able to go this far today. See, got to live in the moment, you go with whatever. Now, so what's happened? This is going to be my wrap up. What's happened? We are now, keep that in mind, we are now committed to moving forward. And these are why the changes. This is why you're exposing to this content and other different contents, why you're exposing yourself to higher states of your beingness. Because you've now made a commitment to move forward more than ever. You came here with that commitment, but now you're increasing it. Forward in a new direction while providing ourselves with the opportunity to express ourselves fully and being the actualized being you are. What else can I say about that? You've made a commitment to shift. You made a commitment to be a conduit. You've made a commitment to, and this goes on many, many levels, to really transform this human experience that you are having and the human experience of the different involvements that you're involved or engagements that you have, but also from a collective perspective. Anything and everything that you experience, you're uploading in the collective. Every aha, every shift in yourself is upgrading the collective. There's nothing you don't do that in one way is in reinforcing one or reinforcing another. Now there's many of us, many versions of yourself that are already made huge strides and are making more and more strides. Nobody's arrived, there's no arriving. It's always expanding and growing. As we're making these strides, more of us are coming on board. And as you're coming on board, you're now activating this new world. The new world is already existing. It's not something we're creating. We're on opening it up, we're expanding it and upgrading it. That's all we're doing. So this is existing, but you're bringing it online more and more. That's the big change. You're bringing it online more and more. Because you came here to express yourself. Let's make that yourselves. Fully being the actualized being that you are. Actualized being that you are. What does that even mean? You are a beautiful combination of sourceness with a very specific signature, with a very specific expression, a very specific, what do you call it? Direction or channel of evolvement or enlightenment that you are providing. Because each one of you, the moment you take on a physical form, the moment you become part of this experience, you are a contributor. You're part of that piece of the puzzle that makes this new world come to life. And that's what we're doing. The new world exists, but it's bringing it more online, but that new world is not stagnant. It's constantly upgrading. That new world is not only a reflection of us on the planet, but it's the whole solar system, and it's the galaxy and the universe. So us coming back online is really just having influence and conducive influence that we are choosing to allow us to shift and expand our experience. All right. Kimberly, if you're still on, is there any other questions, comments, or anything else that I need to address? Okay. So we have a workshop coming up December the 5th and the 6th. It's a 2-day workshop. It's live streamed, it's interactive, very much walking you through the different stages and processes to bring online some of the stuff that we've talked about and more. Kimberly is putting the link on the description, I guess, not the description, sorry, in the comment section of Facebook and so forth. We will also be promoting it more extensively. You're free to sign up for it. We're doing something different this time around. The workshop is made available. There is a recommended fee for it, for example, to access the live stream and the recordings. However, to provide no restrictions for anyone, you also have the option. So you basically can sign up for free and contribute, donate, if you want to call it, the recommended amount or more or less or nothing, depending on your situation. The content, okay, it has to be at least $1. Okay, well, there might be the free one. Can we set one up for free? Okay. All right. We'll have a donation button and we'll have a free button. What's that? Yeah, we'll see what we can do. Okay. Kimberly's going to work on the platform to fix that up if it's possible. So you can access it for free and you can do a donation whatever way you choose. You will have access to the live stream, and also you'll get a copy of the recordings, video and audio recordings. Of course, we're still playing in the money game. It's, you know, we need to support ourselves and also all the platforms and everything else that we're doing. So if you can contribute as much as you can, that's great. If you contribute less, that's great. If you can't contribute any at this time, that's okay too. And, you know, as we're doing some of these workshops, the episodes, and you feel that you can contribute at different times, you can do so. So the purpose here is to provide some powerful tools for people to use. Plus, you know, at this point, if we can sustain ourselves, that'll be super beneficial. So some people may want to support more and some not. That's okay. It doesn't mean we see anything less. But the point is to reach as many people as possible, because sometimes people say, well, I don't have the resources and so forth at this time because of everything else that's going on or in their particular stage of life. So we didn't want to limit anyone. So you are free to come on at whatever amount that you would like to offer. I know sometimes when we had something like this, some people offer a lot more just so that it supports us and you know, allows us to be able to do what we need to do and to facilitate others they cannot offer. Normally, we charge two different fees. We charge a fee for the live stream, which automatically gets the video and audio recording. And some people that can't be live will, you know, pay a certain amount for the recordings. Right now, we're making it all available. You get both. If you can or cannot be on, that's okay. You still get both no matter what, depending on, it doesn't matter how much you contribute or not at this point in time. So that's coming on the 5th and the 6th. So that's a Saturday and a Sunday in December. So that's the first weekend of December. The other thing is, share it with others, share it with as many people as possible, share the series, share the podcast if you're listening to the podcast. We want to reach as many people as possible, because as many people as possible that get exposed to the content will help people to increase their vibration and start to experience itself more in a moment, and actualize themselves more and more. We are ultimately the one that are changing our collective experience. So each one that creates a shift within ourselves is accentuating, and it negates a lot of the ones that are still playing polarized. And when I say negated, it means that it doesn't matter how much negative there is, it changes the range for them. They can still have their experience to a degree, but it will not be a collective experience in the sense where it will continue to restrict in that regards. Kimberly, was there anything else you wanted to share at this point? Okay, so my sweetheart from across the country is saying, time to wrap it up. I think you covered enough. So anyways, share, subscribe. In the description, there's also the link if you want to join the community and receive emails time to time. We will post the upcoming workshop, and we'll see you Saturday for the next episode of Advancing Consciousness series, the podcast. Yes? Oh, yes. Thank you for reminding me. And this coming Thursday, pay attention to the Facebook announcements and so forth. And I'm going to try to stream it also on YouTube. I don't think I have. Kimberly will be sending out emails. I will be posting it on Facebook mainly. I have a show with Todd Medina, Soology, that is coming up this Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. So if you can join us there, that would be great. We're going to explore and talk about some other things. I always enjoy our fascinating conversations with Todd Medina. So that's this Thursday coming up. So today's Tuesday, so it's not tomorrow, the day after. And that's it. And then we'll see you on Saturday for this next episode of our series. And that's going to be an interesting one. Just stay tuned. So great. Thank you for making this all possible. Thank you for your contributions. Thank you for your support. And if all resonates, please continue to support us. The links are below. And go out and play and have a blast. And since I got to get closer to shift things over, so till next time, go out and play.